the Radio Today Podcast with Jen Seyderhelm.
Hi and welcome. Steve Ahern joins me with plenty to talk about this week. The latest on Kyle, Jackie and their respective legal battles against ARN, SRN for sale or not for sale, a significant win for the ABC in Canberra, takeaways from Radio Days, including a potential hot tip on a Kyle and Jackie O replacement, and a look ahead to Survey 2, which is released on Thursday, April 21. Welcome, Steve.
Hi, Jen, and welcome back from Riga. How was it?
It was amazing. The whole experience was incredible. And in fact, I'll get to what I got out of it that surprised me straight away. But I'm going to hold back on the hot tip on the ARN Kyle and Jackie O replacement.
Excellent. We've got to tease forward to the end of the podcast to keep everyone here.
Do we what? Anyway, what I found really interesting having gone 2 years ago was, and you'll know the same thing, was 2 years ago it was all about AI, look at this, look what we can do with this beautiful, bright, shiny thing. Whereas Radio Days this year was very much about use it judiciously. We've learnt our lesson. Now you don't want to ruin your reputation with sloppy AI muck. And I found that really interesting. The other thread that was pervasive was how much video has to be a part of your podcast nowadays. And Steve, if I was going to predict Radio Days 2 years in the future, I am going to guess that in 2 years we'll have, you don't need to have video in your podcasts, as we are doing a video podcast as we speak, but it was everywhere. The need for having your podcast on all platforms in every fashion, and, you know, making sure that you did it irrespective of any qualitative loss.
Yeah, look, I think it is one of those things. There are trends, aren't they? And new trends, everyone grasps onto it. And some people can see a little bit further into the future. Others are just, it's can't see the wood for the trees kind of thing while the new trend is there. And I think on that point, I agree with you totally. And even now, some forward thinkers that I'm talking to are saying when there's a reason for video, of course we should have it, but we should remember that radio is a production medium that doesn't require huge costs, huge setups, lighting, etc. So we have to figure out a low-cost, easy way of capturing video like we're doing in this video podcast right now. And where it's relevant and where you think you're going to be able to get a bigger audience and monetize it, then by all means do video. But remember that probably there'll be a large number of podcasts where people won't be watching the video because they have their phone in their pocket, they'll have their wireless earbuds on, and they'll be walking around. So you've got to know your audience, you've got to know how they're going to use it, and then be strategic.
I very much agree. And heading towards our audio awards, which are coming up in May, the standard of audio podcasts and what they are creating with a audio sphere is so extraordinary. And I just, the power of them can't be underestimated. And that was more my sense coming out of Radio Days, is just how much can be created in that theatre of the mind.
Yeah, so true. And you were a judge of the audio awards along with 99 others, including me. And it was so exciting to listen through, read all those submissions. Now we have the finalists released, so we know who the finalists are. And there's another round of in-person judging to select down those finalists to the final winners.
Yeah, and the standard was so extraordinarily high. What you said, Steve, is absolutely right. I was so excited by the podcasts and the audio that I was hearing. It was, for me, so invigorating again for what audio just by itself offers. So it's been yet another week of non-stop action with Kyle, Jackie O, and it feels like every day something new is turning up. The last 48 hours have been particularly significant in the Jackie Henderson side of legal proceedings.
Yeah, that's right. And because of connections and because I know where to get documents in the federal court system, I've been able to get most of the documents that are public filings. And in some of those documents, there's huge amounts of pages, and legal gobbledygook makes it even longer. But hidden in many of those submissions are exhibit filings, and they're the ones that are really interesting. In Kyle's exhibit filings, there's a number of scripts and transcripts from what he said on air and notes from meetings quoted in legal documents. And in Jackie's ones are also mentions in the legal documents and exhibits of correspondence, messages, texts between Jackie and her managers and the top management of ARN.
Now, that latter part is critical because up until a couple of days ago, we'd only been really talking about February 20 when everything blew up. However, Jackie has now shown that she had approached management over the course of the last 6 months in particular about Kyle's actions and words on air.
Yes, so true. And of course, when talking about any legal case, we've got to make the point that this is the filing and the submission by one party, in this case, Jackie Henderson. We don't have access at this time to these submissions by ARN. So it could be that they will challenge those assertions. But anyway, we now know exactly that there were at least 2 documented times before the February on-air blow-up where Jackie had complained about Kyle's abusive, offensive, degrading behaviour. Interestingly, to me, reading it, I mean, that's no surprise. We've been talking about that, and we know that Kyle's defence is that he was asked to do that, and it's in his contract. But what we didn't know that has been revealed in the documents is that Jackie was increasingly getting complaints and comments from female listeners who were saying to her, "Aren't you abused? This is abuse. This is degrading to women. How do you feel about that? You should say something about that." Now, we don't know how Jackie feels about it. We only know what's in the documents. But you could imagine that the act they've been doing for years has been very successful and listeners have enjoyed the banter. But now if the listeners, and, some of them might be the lobby groups, the Mad Witches and others, but they could well be women listening. It's a significant part of the audience. And if women are listening now and hearing something different and perceiving something different and feeling like Jackie is on the bad receiving end of this, then that creates a whole new dynamic in the audience in itself, and in the long run could have caused a decline in ratings. But even more so, if Jackie as a woman is hearing this from other women, then maybe she's rethinking and it's really touched her. And that was part of her change of attitude over what we now know is about the last 6 months.
I have something additional to add to this that I don't think's been touched on yet. And I feel that one of the areas in which Jackie has been actively reading feedback has been the podcast she was doing with Gemma O'Neill, the Her Best Life podcast. Because as you will know, Jackie has made no public comment. So everything we've had thus far has been released through legal channels, and I totally understand why she's done that. However, you'll also probably be aware that Gemma O'Neill is bringing Meghan Markle for an event that they're having next weekend, which is really quite a significant achievement for
huge.
Gemma and for that organisation that Jackie was a part of. Now, Jackie, who has made no public comment on anything, when the news was released about Meghan Markle and this event, commented publicly on the podcast link and said, "Well done, Gemma, living your best life."
Oh,
And
wow. I didn't notice that.
yes.
Oh, good eagle eyes looking at the comments on that podcast.
Well, it caught me by surprise, but lots of women replied. And if you want to know where women who are in a group that I believe that Jackie will actually be listening to, that is where you should be looking. And so I went through those comments there, and I can't help but feel that while the feedback she sort of put as being listeners had been telling her, I think we could perhaps also say it's listeners to her podcast that has nothing to do with they'll be listening to the show, but they'll be commenting somewhere else. So I just thought I'd mention this because that is the first time I had seen Jackie publicly comment on anything since February 20.
That's a really significant observation. Good on you.
Yeah, so we sit with the two of them apparently appearing in court on the same day, which is extraordinary.
I know. And lots of speculation about that. But really, why speculate about it? It's an efficient way for the court justice to get both parties there. There could well be all sorts of conflicting viewpoints as each party goes into trial and evidence. So probably the judge is saying, well, you two better at least publicly talk to each other in the public sphere and know that I'm keeping an eye on what you both say. So I think it's just a legal shot over the bows to say, I'm watching you.
Well, more to come on that. And before we get to some of the other things, I suppose that leads into Survey 2, which is out Thursday, April 21, and it will be the first that features a large portion without Kyle and Jackie O. Have you any thoughts or predictions?
Well, I guess Sydney and Melbourne are the ones we should be looking at. The fact that both Christian O'Connell and Kyle and Jackie O were networked often on DAB into other of the metro markets is not significant, so I'm going to ignore that. I think on KISS in Melbourne, we might even see a tiny little uptick because Kyle and Jackie O are not there. So all the mainstream Melbourne market perception was that Kyle and Jackie were not good for the KISS brand there and that they were driving it down, bringing lots of negative feedback and scaring away advertisers. Sydney will be very different, though. We will see, I am sure, a big fall in KISS breakfast because they've not been on. Remembering, though, the nature of the survey is going to roll 4 weeks of when Jackie and Kyle were on into Survey 2. Yeah. So it won't be as big a change as it could be. I think we'll see a further big change in Survey 3 and 4. But still, I think there will be an effect on KISS breakfast, no matter who's in there. And of course, they haven't really named any permanent successor yet because they can't for legal reasons. And I think we're also going to have a spotlight on ARN's other brand, Gold, and see if Christian O'Connell is going to pick up audience. And he's a really seasoned performer. He gets to people on a personal level. At first, people may have a reaction which may not be against Christian. It may just be, oh, where's our favourites, Jonesy and Amanda? So there could be some change there. Personally, I don't think so. I think that Gold Breakfast, it lost a lot last survey. I don't think it'll pick up. It may have further to fall, hard to say. And we should also be watching afternoons on Gold because Jonesy and Amanda held their audience against the declines in other shifts on the station. Will that go up? fans of Jonesy and Amanda hopefully would be supporting them and may have put ticks in the book? Or will it settle now because, afternoon driving home listening is a different habit. So while people may have gone to find their favourites, Jonesy and Amanda, for a while, will they go back to their driving home habit of playing their own music or listening to the news on the way home or whatever that might be? But yeah, they're the ones to watch for sure. And then in breakfast in Sydney, the knock-on effect across the whole Sydney market is fascinating.
Yeah, and a few of the stations have actively made plays to claim the Kyle and Jackie O audience, notably Today FM and Nathan Emma and Triple M. And
Yeah.
I've actually really enjoyed the Triple M campaigning. I think it's a lot of fun, and my gut feeling is that Triple M Sydney is going to have a good year. They've put a lot of good things in place to potentially pick up some of that audience. I think it's interesting what you said about Christian, because my feeling was that just by nature of people checking out things, that Christian will get a lift this survey, but not necessarily like a real reflective lift because something is missing elsewhere, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And as he observed himself, the Australian radio market is feral about ratings. And I did write a comment at the bottom of that story with a little historical perspective that, we've had competition in our market far longer than the British market. So he should be ready for that competition. And he's certainly facing it in the Sydney market. He faced it in Melbourne when he first came and has made a huge success. So all credit to him, and he may well do it in Sydney. Time will tell.
Time will tell, but I don't think we're going to see any true reflection of it in Survey 2. What I did want to mention, though, that I think is fascinating from a different audience's perspective on Jonesy and Amanda and Christian O'Connell is the Canberra Survey results that were out this week. So Survey 1 2026. Now, Steve, you worked in Canberra in the past. You must have looked at them and just had a little yes go, because Ross Solly on ABC Canberra Breakfast was number one in the spot. And I think it's got to be 4 or 5 years since we've had an ABC breakfast show in a capital city or a provincial market that has been number one in any survey. So this is massive for the ABC in Canberra. Congratulations to them. I don't mean to dismiss Mix, because Mix had exceptional results. Larry Appley, who is on he's 1 till 6 in the afternoon, had some 30% of the audience on Mix, which is astonishing for the station. But for the ABC, that was amazing.
It was, and good on Ross. He is a really good operator. I've worked with him over the years. The difference is that he's a big personality. He puts himself out there more than many ABC announcers do. He's an experienced journalist. He has a background as a producer as well as a journalist and a presenter. So he understands the interplay with the audience, and he's very local to Canberra. He knows Canberra, and his family have lived there for a long time, and he's really got everything going for him. I remember that the management team in Canberra, when they were trying to convince him to come back to the show, they were looking around at a whole lot of people, including those who were already on air in different shifts. And when they tested the market, Ross Solly was the personality who ABC audiences really had a touch point with. Of course, the other thing too is that Canberra is an industry town, and the industry is politics and diplomacy and defence. So we've got a few wars going on in the world too, and that automatically helps the ABC in those times.
Well, it does, and I agree with you, but countering that is that Radio National had an absolute blinder, Survey 3 last year, and dropped immensely. So people chose the local ABC over the broad spectrum Radio National this time round. So
and I think that goes to what I was saying about Ross being very much a touch point in Canberra, because on that local radio mix, you've still got the major news bulletins from the ABC, and you've still got the morning current affairs shows, early AM and AM. So if you're happy with the local radio breakfast show and hearing about what's going on in your home city, but you can also get the quality of reporting that the ABC does, then yes, you'll gravitate back to the local station. Sally, I think, is also outstanding on RN Breakfast, but it's another moment of market movement, really. I don't think it's a matter of someone losing audience. I think it's a matter of market movement when it's the right time and right place for the right person, in this case, Ross.
Yeah, and on a final note of Ross and what you just said about him being everywhere, I don't know if you're aware, but ABC Perth is doing an open day, which I think is also not this weekend, but the weekend afterwards. And in their byline, it's Ross Solly finally meets Mark Gibson. I was like, so he's off to Perth to, be at the open day, as you do when you're an ABC Canberra breakfast host. But the reason why
And over in Perth, by the way, on that station, 720 ABC, the old 6WF, Mark Gibson is really working hard. He understands the local market. He has big recognition from his television profile. He's also worked in commercial media, so he's really working that local market too.
Yes, he's doing really well. And I probably should also mention that 720 is no more.
Yes, yes, that's so true, isn't it? Yes, they've gone to FM.
You've got to get used to that whole different mindset.
Gosh, I'll have to memorise some new call signs. I know all those AM call signs.
Me too. And I have to admit, I think it's 102 something, but I haven't quite got the last digit of the new FM one. But the reason why
Give us a few surveys. We'll have it in
we'll have it all down
pat.
The other mention of Canberra was because the results really screamed local. And when Christian O'Connell and Jonesy and Amanda were networked, there was some talk, because I am a Canberra local, that Mix
and you also have been on the radio in Canberra, so you know that market extremely well.
But there was some talk that Mix would get Christian or Jonesy and Amanda in the afternoon. Now, they get the hour of power kind of style shows, which rated, reasonably, but not top in their spots. But I really felt like this was a survey that said that Canberra, for one market, among others, because as you'll know, Jonesy and Amanda has been networked sort of nationwide now, but that's not going to work for Canberra.
No,
and they had
true.
really, really actively shown how very local-centric they were in this particular survey, which I found particularly positive results. That brings me to the only thing we haven't mentioned so far is the other kind of brewing or not story is whether or not the Super Radio Network is for sale. In the last 48 hours, I saw that Gavin Flanagan, who had only been appointed as the group sales manager in November last year, so what's that, not even 6 months, he's been let go, which felt counter to something that Graham Mott had said recently about that they are looking to build their sales network rather than their broadcaster network.
Yes, I noticed that Gavin's left the Super Radio Network. That coincides also with a conversation I've had with the new CEO, Graham Mott, who, first of all, said that the network is not immediately for sale. It's not on the agenda. The board has not voted on it. Therefore, there is no sale. He was very clear about that. Despite previous conversations and talk amidst the network and amidst the industry, the board has made no decision about selling and is not intending to sell. That means that there's another strategy, which would be consolidate and grow. And Graham's approach, with years of experience, is that revenue growth is the next most important thing for the network. And drawing on his own experience, local direct sales revenue is a high priority for that company. Now, people may have been hired over the last year where there were different priorities, but Graham is very clear that the current priority is local sales, and you get that best when you have local salespeople at local level. As he said, we have feet on the ground, and that helps open doors when the salesperson walks in the room. So I think we're going to see, as part of the revival and repositioning of the Super Radio network, that local sales will be a priority. And so perhaps that explains why Gavin has left, because he was recruited for a different strategy and a different purpose.
Okay, that's food for thought, and one that I'll watch with interest, because there is a lot of radio instability at the moment in terms of who owns what and what's happening next.
Yep, and there's a lot of instability and goings on in that network, let alone whatever else may happen as companies are circling each other for the next round of takeovers. Who knows? Kyle might be buying ARN. Personally, I don't believe that, but I think it's a really interesting talking point that will be there during the court case, just bubbling along, bothering everybody and sitting in the back of our minds and generating gossip. Kyle's fantastic at that, so good luck to him.
He is. And additionally, I feel like we have to mention, because it's one of those other things that I had entirely forgotten about, is that Kyle and Jackie both have significant shares in ARN that they were given along with their contracts.
That's right. Yes. So, performance shares, and also, shares are offered in contract deals. So, yes, they have some skin in the game. And who knows, if they were to win their cases and get a big payout, then their 80-odd million each would be enough to probably buy all the shares that are issued by ARN at, what is it today, 22 cents a share.
Yes, unbelievable. And I will also mention that ARN have their general meeting coming up in a couple of weeks after the survey too, which normally would be kind of passed very quietly, but I don't think this time.
They're kind of dull, those AGMs. I've been to many in person over the years, and it's very procedural. And yes, the questions get interesting, but the rest is just dull procedure. I don't think this one will be dull.
No, I agree. Now, to wrap up today, I thought I would share with you a really fascinating and hot tip on a potential ARN new recruit.
Oh,
Steve,
tell me.
Do you have any idea what I'm going to say? Okay.
No.
So last year, when you went to Radio Days, you'll be aware that John Simons chatted with Jackie O. And that part of that audio, as you can imagine, was played this year at Radio Days. And in the course of that discussion, or in the course of Radio Days, John Simons did another keynote interview with a fellow called Chris Fade. Now, Chris Fade is Australian. He's Sydney-sider. He moved to Dubai and has had a phenomenal career that he's built up in the Middle East. He is quite extraordinarily talented and has many strings to his bow. Now, John Simons asked Chris whether or not he had been approached by ARN. Was there anything to talk about? And Chris said, no comment.
Wow, that is big news.
Oh, but it gets better, Steve.
Tell me.
So that by itself is, it's effectively the same as Kyle stirring a pot. But before Radio Days, Chris's family moved to Sydney.
Oh, okay. There's two pieces of jigsaw puzzle.
Two pieces. And Chris Fade is currently in Sydney.
Well, okay. So, I'm putting two and two together and wondering what the answer will be. Gosh.
Yes, so
I like that hot tip.
I think there is something to see here. It may not be right away, but I think there's definitely something to see here.
Yes. Oh, my mind's going berserk on speculation. We'll have to save that for another podcast.
Yes. It was lovely to catch up today. We will chat again in a couple of weeks' time. So that's Thursday, April 21. Survey 2 is out, and Radio Info, Radio Today's will have all the information for you at 9:30 in the morning.